Hello!
Hello!
And welcome to I'm That Witch! We're back.
For another one.
And we are...
The mother of all mothers.
The mother of all mothers, Mother Shipton. We are recording this, I also would like to say, on the last day of Taurus season.
Oh. Is it?
It is.
I have no idea how astrology works. I literally only know my sign and what my sign means to me.
I'm slowly learning. I learned a lot from my grandmother, who is now deceased. I called her Mamu, but she was very, very into astrology.
Yeah.
And in ways that I did not understand as a child, because sorry, this is off topic to the podcast, but I used to play businesswoman with her and my grandpa, and
you were business Barbie?
Pretty much, yeah. I had my own little name, and I don't know what my company did, but I was the CEO of a company. I should have known at a young age that, I don't know. Anyway.
She was already a cog in the capitalist machine.
Honestly, though. But I remember one time in this game, I was like, the stocks are crashing. I had no idea what that meant, but I'd probably heard it on a movie. And she looked at me and she's like, oh, honey, you would never react that way. You're a Taurus. And I was like, I'm 6. I don't know what that means.
True.
But I remember telling my mom that story later, and she was like, she was always saying stuff like that to you, and I feel like she was trying to instead of making it all about she would frame it in an astrology framework, but it was she'd follow it up with you would keep a level head, and here's how you would react. She's like, I kind of feel like she was just trying to teach you how to get through life and make these choices, but she always framed it as oh honey, you're a Taurus.
Oh honey. But it's amazing how people can keep track of not only, because isn't it your sun, the sun, moon, and the star signs?
Each planet has a different...
Yes, exactly. And that's and then people know the interactions between each sign, not only the 12, but then how each one... It's just too much for my brain to keep track of in the first place.
I know. So I can keep track of some of it, but yeah, she knew all of the inner workings. I know my sun, moon, and rising signs, and I know that Taurus season is ending, and tomorrow, for us at least, this will have already passed once this episode goes out. But tomorrow, May 20th, is the beginning of Gemini season. So this is a message to all of you astrology girlies out there, that we have just finished up this period of stability and groundedness, and we are now moving into Gemini, which is an air sign, and so it is all about communication and open communication and having dialogue and relationship building. Oh. So now's
good
to
keep in mind.
Now's the time, my Gemini friends.
Gemini's rising.
And I am a Gemini moon. I'm a Taurus sun, Gemini moon, Taurus rising. Ask me what that means. I will tell you I don't know. But the CoStar astrology app told me so.
All hail the CoStar astrology app.
Shout out. Please sponsor us. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, I'm sorry. Now that I've taken us on a tangent.
No, good. I thank you for the knowledge on that, because I really don't follow any of it, but I find it so fascinating, the different reasons behind each sign. And I had a friend who was also very interested in that and explained it all to me, and it's all gone out my head in the meantime, I think, unfortunately. So shout out to them. But we are getting into a very interesting character today who has a little bit of mystery to themselves as well.
We do. And that is our good friend, Mother Shipton. So, today, we will be covering her mysterious life and her prophecies. And Mother Shipton was often called Britain's Nostradamus.
Oh.
So, I got my information from several sources. I'll be putting all of those in the show notes. But there's a lot of kind of varied information about her. some of which is factual and some of which may possibly be more lore than anything. It's still kind of up for debate, so let's jump into it.
Yes.
Okay, so our story starts in North Yorkshire, England, in a cave along a river called the River Nid. It was here in 1488 that a 15-year-old girl named Agatha Southiel went into labor with her first and only child, a daughter that she would name Ursula. Some lore will tell you it was a dark and stormy night and the river was rising and that Ursula, cursed from the start, was found in the morning next to the body of her mother who had died in childbirth. However, historical records show that Agatha did survive childbirth and began raising her daughter. There are two reasons that we know this, and that is, one, she was apparently interrogated formally interrogated by the magistrate as to the paternity of her child because she was 15 and unwed, and she refused to share that information. And the second reason is that at some point in Ursula's early childhood, a local family saw that Agatha was struggling as a young, unwed mother and offered to raise Ursula for her. So Agatha, most likely out of desperation, agreed. Up to this point, she and Ursula had been living in the very cave where she had given birth to her.
The cave?
In the cave, in the woods, by the river. So she probably felt like it was going to be her daughter's best chance at a good life. She gave her daughter Ursula up to this family, and she went to live at a nunnery or a convent.
Oh my God, I thought you were going to say she went back to the cave.
She retreated back to the cave. Now, Agatha went to receive care from a convent or a nunnery, but unfortunately, only a few years later, Agatha died at the nunnery, and she never got to reunite with her daughter Ursula.
Why'd she die?
No one knows. I'm sure someone knows, but I don't know.
Brutal.
Yeah, she was quite young, would have been quite young when she died, because she was 15 when she gave birth. And Ursula was about 2 when she was given to this family. So Agatha would have only been 17 when she went to the nunnery, and died just a few years later, most likely in her early 20s, I would assume.
Wow.
Now, Ursula herself seemed to be doing okay with a few exceptions. She was living in a home where she was fed and clothed and presumably cared for, but she was bullied by her peers and often accused of being a witch. The circumstances of her birth were already so mysterious and quite frankly tragic, but she also suffered from what some described as physical deformities. I'm using the word deformities lightly here because the general description of her appearance is really what would come to mind when we think of a stereotypical witch or like a hag figure in fairy tales. They said she kind of had a hunched back, rather bulging eyes, and a long crooked nose. And she was described as looking like an old woman even at a young age.
Oh, poor Ursula.
I know. On top of her strange appearance, she also exhibited some strange behavior, often attracting animals to her and speaking in ways that were just beyond her years. And she, at a young age, also started having visions or prophecies that she would write down in the form of like rhymes and poems. Her foster family seemed to be a bit scared of her, and her peers bullied and ostracized her, so Ursula took to the woods in her free time. She frequently spent time in the cave where she was born, learned the plants and animals of the area, and embraced the quiet solace of nature. By the time she was 24, Ursula was a skilled herbalist and was able to expertly use plants to make medicines and potions. The same people who had once ridiculed her as a child now frequently sought her help. She also had caught the eye of a carpenter named Tobias Shipton. While many in the town gossiped that Ursula must have slipped Tobias a love potion or cast a spell due to her appearance, rude, the most likely scenario is that Tobias genuinely loved Ursula. She was described by many people as being very sweet and soft and extraordinarily kind despite the cruelty she had endured, and so it's likely that this inner beauty far outweighed anything else that might have deterred Tobias. They got married, and that is how Ursula Southiel became Ursula Shipton. By all accounts, Tobias and Ursula were very much in love and lived happily. He continued his carpentry work, and she continued fixing herbal remedies for people's ailments, as well as dabbling in fortune-telling and magic. One account tells of a neighbor who had some items stolen, and they went to Ursula for help. And the next day, another neighbor walked down the street holding the items that were stolen, proclaiming, "I stole my neighbor's stuff." And, I mean, obviously in old-timey English, she didn't say stuff. And then she walked up to Ursula's door and gave the goods back to her to return to the neighbor they were stolen from. And people were like, well, clearly this was witchcraft, because she just straight up, like, confessed walking down the street and then gave them back to Ursula. So, people think maybe Ursula may have pulled a few strings, magically speaking, on that one. Sorry, I'm readjusting because I have old lady hips that are angry at the way I was sitting.
But that makes me mad, because I was like, maybe Honey just had scoliosis, and these people were so mean.
Honestly, though, like, and genuinely...
She had a little slip disc, okay?
Honestly, I think, like, she probably did have some kind of, like, maybe medical condition that she would be looking like an elderly woman at a young age.
Yeah.
But she also, you know, with her prophecies and everything, that also, I think, just kind of added to the strangeness that people perceived.
Yeah. And let's be real, most people back then were not looking so hot.
Honestly, though. And there are all kinds of, like, drawings of Ursula that very much, you know, are look to be kind of exaggerated, as like the long crooked nose and the hag figure. Yes. But then, like, there's one portrait that keeps popping up that I see of her that looks like a painted, like, oil portrait. And she just looks like a lady. Like, she just looks like an old woman with, like, kind of a big nose. Which, like, ooh, Among Us, right?
I know. I'm like, who are the other village people? Bella Hadid and Kendall Jenner? I mean...
I know. I just, like... I don't know. It's wild. And I guess, like... I don't know. We'll take whatever is said about her appearance with a grain of salt, because we don't truly know. We don't have photographs. She was born in, what did I say, 1488?
Yeah, we're gonna take everything with a grain of salt. Maybe she had some kind of medical conditions going on that changed her appearance and made her look, you know, different than a lot of the town folk.
Most likely.
But she's together with Mr. Shipton.
Yes.
But where does Mother come in?
So, here we go. Tobias Shipton, he's got his carpentry business. She's got her herbal remedies and medicinal apothecary going on. But, unfortunately, this kind of happy period didn't last forever. After only 2 years of marriage, Tobias took ill and died, leaving Ursula widowed, childless, and the subject of gossip once again, as many townspeople started to theorize, quite cruelly, that Ursula had killed her husband using witchcraft, despite the fact that she would have no gain from murdering her husband. Like, I feel like we hear these stories a lot, and then we're like, and then she had this big inheritance. Ursula didn't have that. She didn't get any financial gain. There's no evidence he abused her. It genuinely seems like it was just a really, really sad, terrible timing.
Yeah.
And she never remarried, and she never had any children. So the mother part came later. We will get to that. But basically, you know, these rumors are starting, and spurred on by the rumors and the feeling of being ostracized again, something that had plagued her since childhood, and she had finally, it seemed like, kind of gotten over. She retreated back to the woods that had brought her so much comfort as a child, and she made a home for herself in the woods and continued her herbalism practice from her home in the woods. Despite this, people still sought her help over the years. They would brave the trek into the woods to get remedies and prophecies from the now aging woman they referred to as Mother Shipton, because she had taken on this kind of wise woman role with her prophecies. So they used Mother rather than being a reference to her having children. It kind of became more of a sign of respect. Now, you may recall the beginning of the story. I referred to Mother Shipton as England's Nostradamus. And that is because Mother Shipton was not simply reading tea leaves and telling village ladies how many babies they were going to have with her prophecies. She was making some pretty intense prophecies involving national tragedies and members of the monarchy, and she wrote out these prophecies in rhymes and riddles, as I've mentioned, from the time she was a child, and that's what gets her the comparison to Nostradamus. Some of her most famous prophecies predicted King Henry VIII's victory over France in 1513, the Great Fire of London, King Henry VIII's marriage to Anne Boleyn and break from the Catholic Church,
Whoa!
And Queen Elizabeth I's rise to power and the destruction of the Spanish Armada by Sir Francis Drake, who she mentioned by name.
Whoa!
Mother Shipton's prophecies soon became famous, and they began being printed in pamphlets for distribution. There's even speculation that Mother Shipton is the one referenced in King Henry's letters to the Duke of Norfolk when he talks about the Witch of York. However, some modern scholars argue that some of the prophecies alleged to belong to Mother Shipton were actually political or religious propaganda that were simply being kind of attributed to her in order to weaponize the idea of prophecy or divine intervention. He sleeps with one eye open.
It's because his skin is pulled back under my armpit. Sorry, I'm holding Aries who has fallen asleep and looks like a little zombie.
I kind of want to take a... Can I take a picture?
Yes, we're going to take a pause.
Oh wait, shit. I don't want to take a selfie.
One eye open, motherfuckers.
Ladies and gentlemen, that may end up in our slideshow for this podcast. Or
I know, just a photo of his one eye open. He's like, you want to see a hag? I'll give you hag.
Oh my god.
He's giving camp.
Oh my god.
He's been a good little boy.
He has. He's a good boy.
He literally's been like asleep the whole time.
I don't know if I should be like offended or honored. He slept through my story.
Well, like, I think he just knows he needs to like chill out. Because he knows I won't play like. See, no.
He's like, I heard play noises.
Yeah. So resume.
Yes,
We can resume.
So Mother Shipton continued to make these prophecies and ended up being able to make a living off of them. I do not know exactly how, but she was paid for these big prophecies, and they were put in pamphlets and widely like mass distributed. And for once, I have like a pretty happy ending to a story, because Mother Shipton continued living off the profits of her prophecies until she died of natural causes at the age of 73.
I mean, that's a pretty valuable skill to have in that time.
Honestly. After her death, several publications came out with prophecies they claimed to have come from Mother Shipton, including one that said the world would end in 1881. However, this and several others have been discredited, with the publishers coming forward and saying they fabricated these predictions for clout.
For clout?
Yeah, I don't know.
Quotes?
Quote unquote, yeah, clout. I don't know what they thought they were going to gain from them, but besides maybe notoriety, but especially I think historically, like maybe being able to say like, oh yes, we found these scrolls attributed to Mother Shipton, and you just made it up. But today, you can still visit the cave in North Yorkshire in the village of Knaresborough, where Mother Shipton was said to have been born and where she spent the first couple years of her life. There is a statue there, and it's become a bit of a tourist stop for those who are familiar with Mother Shipton and her outlasting prophecies. And that is all that I have on our friend Ursula Southiel Shipton, aka Mother Shipton, England's Nostradamus.
Wow. So witchcraft was generally accepted at that time?
Well, the thing is, I don't know that it necessarily was accepted, because that would have been like the 1500s to 1600s. If she was born in 1488 and died at the age of 73, so she most likely would have probably lived through a series of witch trials, would be my assumption with that lengthy timeline of her life. But she had gained such a reputation of respect by the people around her, and even by the monarchy, having made these predictions about them, about, Queen Elizabeth, about King Henry, like multiple iterations. Like she foretold, like who would end up being some of like the monarchy's greatest advisors. Like she was the one who was like, these people are going to have a rise to being like an advisor with the monarchy, and it's people no one expected that ended up being like accurate prophecies. So I think that the accuracy of her predictions and just the fact that like they carried such like weight and importance for people had earned her the respect of the people around her. And I think that kind of honestly probably saved her from a lot of accusations that might have otherwise come. So she went from being completely ostracized as a child and having like these unfortunate circumstances like surrounding like her birth and her childhood and even the loss of her husband. She went from all of that to being this like outlasting like respected soothsayer, essentially. In England and elsewhere. People still write about her. So for once, a happy ending.
I know. I mean, she seemed to veer more towards prophesizing and like natural remedies. And
yeah, it definitely seemed to go much closer to like the line of like having visions or like having premonitions of some kind rather than being accused of like consorting with the devil or putting curses on neighbors or
mysticism
like
rather than
right. So that is all that I have on Mother Shipton and her prophecies, and thank goodness we have kind of a happy ending for once, that she had earned the respect of her peers enough to avoid presumably accusations and persecution. Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to have a lighter story once in a while where the person doesn't end up dead at the end.
It really is. And I had considered adding in like a couple of her prophecies to read, like trying to find a couple of her prophecies to read just so you could like hear what they sound like, but some of them are so long and they're kind of like hard to find now. There is apparently like still like a copy, like I'm sure there's an online copy somewhere of like the pamphlet of like the complete prophecies of Mother Shipton. Like it exists. I just could not find access to it. And Amy's little head flop. But if perhaps one day in a mini episode we can read some of her prophecies. Be kind of fun.
So I know that should be a good add-on episode.
It would be kind of fun. We could like make a little like video about it or something. Maybe put it on YouTube and yeah,
amazing.
Good times. All right. Well,
thank you.
Thank you so much for listening and bearing with me through my tangents that might be cut out by the time this goes through editing. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that this episode will be released before our Vero Beach expedition.
I think, yeah, about 2 weeks before. So, is my guess.
Yes, that sounds about right. So, just a reminder for people, we are going to be at the Grimoire Academy's Psychics and Oddities Expo in Vero Beach, Florida on June 23rd. They did add an extra day to it, but we are just going to be there on the 23rd. So if you are in the area, if you have a ticket or if there are still tickets available, you should check it out. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be huge and lots of awesome vendors and stuff there to do. And we will be there under Love Witch Spells and Supplies. We have all kinds of fun goodies and things that we'll be selling, and you can see both of us in person.
Yay!
Yay!
So exciting. We hope to see you there, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yes. Goodbye.
Bye.
I'm That Witch is researched, written, and hosted by Maddy Guerra and Bridgette Golden. Edited by Bridgette Golden. You can find more episodes on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you find your podcasts. You can also find us on social media on Instagram at Love Witch Spells or TikTok at Love Witch Spells 13. Make sure to like and subscribe if you liked what you heard today and want to hear more. Thanks for listening.